What if the man who redefined America's conservative movement was never truly a Republican at all? What if Donald Trump, the face of modern right-wing politics, only wore the label of Republican as a mask, a tool, a key to power? For years, analysts and insiders have whispered about a hidden theory. One that claims Trump didn't join the Republican Party out of loyalty, but out of strategy. It suggests he saw a broken system, a divided party, and realized something no one else dared to, that power wasn't about belonging. It was about branding. And if this theory is true, then everything we think we know about Trump's political identity might be an illusion. To understand the hidden theory, we have to rewind the clock. Long before the rallies, the red hats, and the Oval Office, Donald Trump wasn't a political soldier born in the trenches of conservatism. He was an outsider, a businessman, and most of all, a performer. Before his first campaign announcement, Trump had already lived through decades of shifting political winds. He dined with Democrats, funded liberal candidates, and even praised progressive ideas. In his world, party lines weren't barriers, they were business opportunities. When he finally decided to step into politics, it wasn't about ideology, it was about identifying weakness. And in 2015, the Republican Party was fractured, leaderless, and desperate for someone who could turn outrage into energy. That's where the hidden theory begins, with a man who saw a movement he could remake in his own image. Donald Trump's early political record reads more like a story of experimentation than conviction. In the late 1980s, he openly supported Democrats and their policies. He called for higher taxes on the wealthy, spoke positively about universal health care, and donated large sums to Democratic figures like Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer. His political affiliation switched repeatedly: Republican in 1987, Reform Party in 1999, Democrat in 2001, Independent in 2011, and Republican again in 2012. This constant change puzzled political analysts. Was he indecisive or strategic? In 2004, he famously said, "It just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans." Statements like that didn't come from a man tied to one ideology. They came from someone studying both sides, looking for leverage. And when he re-entered the Republican Party, he didn't join their system, he reinvented it. When Trump announced his run in 2015, his campaign felt like a political earthquake. He didn't sound like a Republican, act like a Republican, or even campaign like one. While traditional conservatives talked about small government and global trade, Trump spoke about walls, tariffs, and America first. He rejected foreign wars that his predecessors supported and called long-standing allies freeloaders. Even his communication style shattered norms. Unfiltered tweets replaced polished speeches. To the establishment, he was dangerous. To ordinary Americans, he was different. For decades, the Republican Party had been built on diplomacy, structure, and restraint. Trump turned it into a stage. Loud, unpredictable, emotional, and viral. That's where many believe the shift happened. The party stopped defining Trump. Trump started defining the party. And that's the foundation of the hidden theory. He wasn't shaped by the Republicans, he reshaped them. Trump's genius wasn't in politics, it was in perception. He recognized something every strategist had missed. People no longer trusted institutions. Both Democrats and Republicans had become symbols of failure for the working class. Trump saw that gap and filled it. His slogan, "Make America Great Again," wasn't a political statement, it was a cultural one. It reached the factory worker in Ohio, the farmer in Kansas, and the veteran who felt forgotten. He gave millions of Americans something the party couldn't: belonging. The movement that rose around him wasn't purely Republican, it was populist, emotional, and deeply personal. He didn't just lead supporters, he built a tribe. And that's the essence of the hidden theory. Trump wasn't adopted by the right wing, he hijacked it, rebranding a fading party into a vehicle for his personal revolution. As Trump's presidency unfolded, the Republican Party itself began to fracture. The traditional conservatives, those shaped by the Reagan era, watched as the core values of fiscal restraint and diplomacy were replaced by slogans and spectacle. Some resisted, many surrendered. Republican figures like John McCain and Mitt Romney openly challenged him, while others stayed silent, fearing the wrath of Trump's voter base. In Congress, loyalty wasn't measured by conservative principles anymore. It was measured by allegiance to Trump himself. Even policy became secondary to personality. The man had become the message, and for the first time in decades, the Republican Party had no single ideology, only an identity crisis. Under Trump, the party's platform was rewritten, not in political terms, but in personal ones. He didn't adapt to their system, he made the system adapt to him. This is where the theory becomes undeniable. What if Donald Trump never intended to serve a party, but to use one as his foundation for dominance? The Republican label gave him legitimacy, access, and a built-in voter base. But once he had the stage, he tore down the script. Political scientists call this a hostile takeover, when a leader absorbs an institution and remakes it around himself. Under Trump, the GOP stopped functioning as a party and became more like a movement centered on one man's image. That's not betrayal, that's rebranding. And perhaps that's the most remarkable part of the theory. Trump didn't infiltrate the Republican Party. He transformed it into something unrecognizable, a hybrid of populism, nationalism, and showmanship. By the time he left office, the line between party and personality had completely vanished. Even after his presidency ended, the effects of his transformation lingered. Republican leaders who once distanced themselves from Trump now echoed his language and tone. Elections across America became less about policy and more about loyalty to his ideology. For the first time, the Republican brand wasn't defined by economic conservatism or foreign strategy. It was defined by emotional connection. Supporters didn't see Trump as a politician, they saw him as a symbol of resistance. Even those who opposed him admitted he had reshaped the political landscape permanently. He turned conservative politics into a cultural movement, something no Republican before him had achieved. The hidden theory concludes with one haunting question. If Trump never truly belonged to the party, then what happens to a party that now belongs entirely to him? So was Donald Trump ever truly a Republican, or just a master of timing and power? Maybe Donald Trump was never really a Republican, or maybe the Republican Party simply became something else. His rise didn't just reshape American politics, it redrew the meaning of what a political party even is. For decades, Republicans stood for small government, free trade, and traditional diplomacy. Trump challenged every one of those pillars, yet millions followed him anyway. That loyalty wasn't to an idea or a platform, it was to a person who turned politics into emotion. Some called it dangerous, others called it refreshing. But one thing became clear: Trump's movement blurred the lines between ideology and identity. He didn't just borrow the Republican banner, he transformed it into something entirely his own. And that's the hidden theory. Trump wasn't trying to fit inside the Republican mold, he was breaking it, reshaping the party in his image. Whether that's evolution or destruction depends on who you ask. But what's undeniable is this: American politics will never return to what it was before him, because in the end, Trump didn't just change the party, he changed the definition of belonging, loyalty, and leadership in modern America. The truth about Donald Trump's Republican identity may never be fully known, but its impact is undeniable. He changed the meaning of the party, the power, and the presidency itself. And whether you agree with him or not, his influence will echo through history. He turned a political label into a personal empire, and in doing so, proved that politics is no longer about sides, but about stories. He didn't just lead a movement, he rewrote the rules of leadership itself. Every era has its disruptor, and for America, that disruptor was Donald Trump. This was the hidden theory that Donald Trump was never really a Republican. If you enjoy uncovering the secrets behind modern politics, subscribe now, because the next story might change how you see power forever.